Carries.
So we have a forum and 6:02. Thank you. Good evening. My name is Jeff Heller and I'm the Chair of the Solid Waste Disposal Recycling Advisory Committee. Welcome to August 6th meeting, 2024. In accordance with open meeting law, at the beginning of the meeting, I must disclose to attendees whether the meeting is being recorded. This meeting is being broadcast via Zoom and is being recorded for publication, later viewing, and administrative purposes. After notifying the chair, any person may make a video or audio recording of the meeting or may transmit the meeting through any medium, subject to reasonable requirements of the chair as to the number, placement, and operation of equipment used, so as to not interfere with the conduct of the meeting. Please let me know, so now that I can make that announcement as well. Okay, no one else?
The other two are not relevant because you don't have a member for a vote.
Okay. So. First agenda item is approval of the meeting, minutes. That was the. That meeting was May 21st. Correct?
That's correct, Mr. Chair. And Mr. Chair, there was one area that is fine, but a little unclear relative to the superintendent of solid waste division. It's the minutes are sufficient. The superintendent will have the next agenda item make some clarity as to the cardboard revenue and the cost of single stream and commingled stream.
Okay. With that,
But the minutes would be in order for acceptance.
okay, does anyone have any edits or comments?
No,
So, can I get a motion to approve these minutes?
Make a motion to approve the May minutes as written.
And a second? Second. Okay, any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Okay. Any dissent? No. Approved unanimously. So, next item is Matt. So we're doing, the primary focus of this meeting is to go over the rates and make our recommendations for preparation for.
yes, which will be the next item at the Matt's update, but some of the things that Matt's going to discuss may influence your folks.
Of course, I would just say, and you know what, I appreciate everyone being here on a summer evening, and so as being respectful of people's commitment and their timing. I wonder if we can, get the update to focus on what our agenda is and get, be cognizant of people's time.
Sure, yep, I'll be brief.
Great.
I did want to address the last meeting, and there was a question about revenue. Recycling revenue, I was speaking sort of in generalities, and so I did get the correct figures. And trying to be brief, basically I was sort of lumping the commingled cost to process and the single stream cost to process into a single statement regarding the trend on those two different types of recycling, and maybe that was a little too general. So the difference between the March meeting which was actually on April 2nd, and the May meeting, the difference in the commingled processing per ton was $19.04. And for single stream over that same period, the cost to process, the difference was $4.83. That was in the town's favor. So that's a lessening of the cost to process that revenue. And the recycling for Cardboard stayed the same, and I think we got a $5 increase in paper over that, so that's just to clarify that. Question that came up after the meetings, or the minutes were released. In terms of the RTS updates, really quickly, we placed the rock and block container.
Before, did that satisfy, Jeff, does that satisfy your?
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I mean, if just, I didn't want to gloss over it, but I actually have the numbers if that's better.
It's clear.
Sometimes I'm just trying to talk about a trend. And sometimes I'm talking about a data point, and maybe I should just make that clear or clearer when I'm, talking. I
No,
want to see
No,
a
that,
trend. and-
that suffices, the way that you just explained it.
Thank you for, being thorough, Jeff, paying attention.
So to get through this, just a couple of quick updates. We do have the rock and block container. It came in operating capital purchase, and we've placed it near the transfer station building inside of the scale house office. And we're accepting that free of charge for any resident. No red brick accepted at that. We were able to purchase hazardous waste storage locker to replace the sort of derelict unit that was on site. Very sturdy, and it's OSHA compliant, and it's out of sight from the residents. It's not for general use. What it is for items that are improperly left at the drop walls that are really unsafe for us to leave available in any storage area. So that's locked away. It's a locked, heavy duty fireproof storage locker. Recycling rates, just really quickly, cardboard is staying the same since the last meeting. Paper remains the same since the last meeting. Those are both revenue. Cardboard's $83.18 per ton. Paper revenue at $37.76 per ton. Commingled hasn't changed much, but we're slightly trending. It's costing $2.36 more to process that, so that's a trend in the wrong direction for us. Single stream costs have gone the other way, and we're actually getting a slight benefit from processing costs. We're now at $32.01 per ton. In May, it was $37.05 per ton. We did have revenue through the last 4 months of fiscal 24, which was great. It's been a long time since we've gotten revenue from our recycling. So in June, the total check came in from Casella was $2,300.42. Overall, March, April, May, and June, all were revenue for the town. And the total on that revenue was $6,197.86. The rest of the fiscal year, we incurred costs for processing, and that came to $23,667.02. So our general cost over the entire year evened out to about $18,000, which is good for the last bunch of years. It's been a while since we've had consistent revenue. I'd say right now we're trending in a fairly stable pattern. And I'd expect that to go into the early fall, and the holiday season always changes everything because there's a lot of demand for cardboard as people start to order things and, gift shopping. So I don't know how that's gonna affect it. Sometimes there's a glut of material. And sometimes, we see a real uptick in the revenue for cardboard. So I'm not sure what the winter season will be, but right now, I'm expecting it to hold fairly steady through the early fall. We've extended our contract for another year with Casella because we're having really good service and good pricing. And so that's one additional year we're gonna be working with them, and then we're gonna be probably putting that out to see if I think Waste Management would be the other company that might be interested in forming a relationship with us for our recycling. The service delivery study is still pending. There's still some questions about the procurement and how that's gonna be, it's funded through 2 different money sources. One's a town meeting warrant article, and then we're supplementing it with grant funds from the Mass DEP, the Recycling Dividends Program. So I think there's some questions that how to put that out to bid, but we know there's a state contract for the service. And we believe that can go out very soon. It's just kind of pending on some details.
So that hasn't, the study hasn't started.
It hasn't started. It was released originally about a year ago, or more than a year ago. And there's just been a series of questions and sort of setbacks and refocusing on the strategy. And I think when the new director of finance and administration in DPW was hired, we really wanted to bring her into it and have her help us correctly put that out. And she's been in place since April. That's so many things are coming at her. It's an overwhelming job. And I think this is just something that we're gonna get done. It's still pending and, we realize it's a priority. It's been definitely on our priority list.
How much of it's coming via the state grant? Do we know?
I would guess less than 20,000, but more than 10,000.
Okay.
We don't know the bids. The bids that we received were from April of
The
23.
grant
The grant,
comes after the bid is accepted, or?
so we have 50,000 in funding from the town,
Yeah.
meeting the warrant article. And the bids that we originally received were in the range of 68 and 72, I
Okay.
believe. And I spoke with our DEP liaison who said that we could use the grant funds to augment our funding to create to bridge that gap. I just think there might be some unusual procedures required to make that.
To obtain the,
Yeah, it's an unusual procurement. I'm not exactly familiar with how
Is it,
the details will happen.
is there any pushback, gonna be any pushback about the delays from, any committees or town meeting, people?
I believe it's been stressed to me that this is a priority. And without being unpleasant, I'm trying to work with the admin group to see if we can move it along.
And then-
I think it's more just, it's unusual. And the people, my procurement and this type of contract is not really my specialty. And I think there's confusion and maybe just exactly how it's gonna get done, but we realize that where the confusion was, and I think we're trying to, get those details.
are you gonna announce Wells? Jeff,
Okay,
Hello, Wells.
Hi,
Can you hear
guys.
us?
Yeah, I can hear you. Sorry, I'm late.
Yes, interrupt, Wells, there are requirements with the open meeting law that, the chair has to address with your remote participation. So Jeff, you'll have to read.
do I have to read the whole beginning part?
No,
of that?
No, just
Okay.
the last paragraph.
Well, any member of the committee who's participating remotely must be disclosed and recorded in the minutes of the committee. The following members are participating remotely. And that's Wells Blanchard. As we have one or more members participating remotely, all votes will now be taken by roll call and recorded as such in the minutes. Thank you, welcome, Wells. I'm sympathetic. I think better to get it right than to get it in a hurry. I was just inquiring, there's sometimes there are people who, watch solid waste expenses and scrutinize those and apply that kind of pressure. And I think, and they have their own goals. I'm not looking forward to the debate. So I would think that getting the data and getting it correctly is more important than getting it quickly. That's my feeling. I don't know, any discussion items, any other discussion?
the only other thing that I wanted to talk
Yeah.
about the state grant, the 20,000 is, we wanna make sure that there's no timing tied to that.
No.
And that that we don't run into fiscal year type, okay,
No, it's not money that expires. It's money that we receive. The state allows you to file every year for all the programs that you or that the town does to promote waste diversion and, you know, best use, composting, recycling, and then they award points based on how well you do it and how well you promote what you're doing. And, so I think we've received, you know, in the range of 15 to 18,000 per year in grant money, and, so the funds are there.
If someone can't raise this, an issue in town meeting and saying the town meeting only authorized this much, yet the town went out and spent more money based on a grant.
No, grants are allowed to be expended, and according to the terms and conditions set by the state or the federal government. This is part of the MRIP program, Massachusetts Recycling Incentive Program, grant program, and monies that town becomes eligible for, as Matt was saying, is based upon the efforts of our recycling efforts, which for Needham have been very good.
Are there additional funds every time we institute a new program? So when we started the food waste, is that something we could try to?
Yeah, so
recover?
sometimes if you look at, I mean, I know we're sort of on a time crunch, but there's. Some of the things are a little bit, I can't kind of feel like old fashioned, like they want us to print flyers. Which, you know, social media, but I mean, I'm just
That's
suggesting.
against, like, why would you
Yeah, like.
print the waste?
You get more points if you do like mailers to homes as opposed to doing like a, you know, a social media post. So they're fine tuning it, and every year it's slightly different. I think, we really do a good job, and I think our waste diversion efforts are, kind of recognized in the funds we get.
Okay.
Really quickly, just to run through this, we do have, new big belly units, that we put out in town. I think one of the highlights would be the triple unit up at the Heights Common at Avery Square. It's a trash in the center, recycling on one side, and then pizza boxes. So it's a triple unit, and the thought process on the, pizza boxes that you can't put it into the recycling container, and if you try and put it into the trash receptacle, you jam it up and make it unavailable for other people to use, because the hopper is, it's just not, it can't accept a pizza box. So it's a way for people to recycle them without, you know, having to go elsewhere or take it home. The Heights Common is obviously right across from a pizza shop, so it works there. We've put in triple units at the town common, just outside. We put them in at Greensfield because they're, again, right across from a pizza shop, and then down at the playground on Greensfield because there's a lot of pizza parties there. And we find that people would leave them stacked on the ground, and at least this keeps it out of the rain. The big bellies have been really successful in deterring household trash. We were picking up 7 days a week from an overflowing barrel at Greensfield, and now we're picking up like 3 or 4 times a week. And the volume is just under control and appropriate to the playground area, as opposed to people bringing it in their car and dumping it in that spot, 3 or 4 bags, and driving home. We're also, you know, controls wind blown litter, or, you know, access for animals, birds getting into those. So we purchased additional units that have no reporting capacity. They're essentially a receptacle, but they match, the same hopper style, so they keep people from bringing outside trash to like a street barrel or to a park. So we're gonna start deploying some of those and see if that really helps us control, you know, essentially illegal dumping. It's a fairly widespread problem, and this really helps to control, that problem. Big Belly will be filming, in Needham. They're based in Needham. They're part of our tax base over across the highway. It's kind of, their headquarters are here, so that's, you know, kind of a benefit to the town, and they're pretty proud of the fact that, you know, we have them deployed around town, and they look really good, and they, you know, are, you know, definitely valued part of our trash and recycling assets in town. So they'll be here this week to do kind of some promotional filming and they wanna, speak with me. They spoke with, Karis. A couple weeks back and for a piece with NECN. We put out some new dumpsters, which is nice, the high school, the calf, Pollard, just old units that were really looking shabby. That's part of our operating capital and, good program that we're moving along with. We're gonna be, there's a new contract, being worked on for our organics and food waste diversion. We're very happy with the way the program runs, so the contract's gonna be written essentially to keep that program running the way it is. It's pretty, mostly what I'm concerned about is maintaining consistency in the school with their pickup, with the, the students, what they're familiar with, how they're familiar with using the food waste program there and the custodial staff, making sure they're comfortable with it. The schools have put out a bid. I don't know if it's been awarded yet for trays, a tray service, so they're no longer using the compostable trays, which it turns out really weren't a benefit. They weren't a benefit financially or environmentally, so having reusable trays is definitely a good step for the schools. And then finally, I don't know if you have seen it, but just to let you know, the swap shop, we've been definitely working with the volunteers to try and provide the relief from the heat, and the days where the heat index is gonna be over 95, we've been closing it, and been a lot of communication among the volunteers and the volunteer coordinator and the RTS staff, just to make sure that happens, and then getting the word out to the community so that people don't show up and aren't surprised. We want to be open as much as we can, but it's been really difficult, and there's a lot of work involved in opening and closing that shop, with the moving material in, bringing it back out. So just being mindful of that and being mindful of the amount of work that takes. We've closed, I'd say 5 or 6 days this summer already, just due to the heat. And that's just a brief update.
Thanks. Is there any fallback from closing the swap shop?
Not much, not much. I think people understand, and I think there's been a lot of,
From the volunteers or from people who show up with something?
people show up. I think they understand how much work it is. If you're standing there all day and it's 98 degrees, it's really difficult even in the shade. And so I think people understand. And, like I said, we try and publish it. And so I think the more you do that, in extreme cold, if you close it, and in extreme heat, you close it. I think people think a minute before they're gonna bring stuff over, and they look at the website, and, we keep it updated.
I kind of like the heat, so I'm not really a good
I
person
don't mind the heat either.
to be talking about this, and so I tend to often I come to the RTS on hot days. And what I've noticed is it doesn't seem to affect the flow into the RTS. The swap shop would be closed, but people still come. I'm kind of amazed
Yeah,
because, like I say, for myself, it doesn't matter. Hot or cold is fine with me, but I know that it affects some people, so. I don't know, I'm just surprised that,
a lot of it's from the feedback from the volunteers. As soon as we did close, they would say how grateful they were that we had
it's
closed.
certainly a thankless job, I don't,
It can be.
I feel for them.
I play tennis and I've had, people who wanna, oh, can we play earlier or not, or maybe we, so I had some people, maybe it's too hot that we play, and I say, just show up and bring water, take it, make the accommodations to address the heat. However, you have when you have but I said, but I don't wanna push anything that they're uncomfortable with, I know how to take care of myself in the heat, and, if you don't, maybe you shouldn't play in it, but I don't want to force you that. And you have a responsibility, to not impose, these kind of conditions on people who, maybe not taking good care, and, you have to ensure for their safety. So, it's good that they appreciate that. I was worried about the other way, that, people, how there's
I do.
that could increase, oh my God, the whole recycling world will change, will come to a standstill if the shop isn't open. Well, thank you.
For the food waste contract being renewed, is that a short-term contract, 1 year?
No, it'll probably be a little bit longer.
And that's the company up in Maine?
It is,
Okay.
but it's not a sure thing that it'll be with them, but it will likely be with them.
And just my observation, because I use, those bins are.
The
the
volume's
town
really
is-
good.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the town is really.
yeah. There may be some sort of cheerleading that needs to happen at the schools a little bit to keep them. I feel like occasionally they, that the numbers show that their participation might not be as robust as it could be, so that might be part of fall activity, getting out into the schools.
So, the next item, while we're here,
Mr. Chair, I provided the committee one with an update in terms of revenues to expense. And as anticipated, basically the fiscal year ended on June 30th. And basically, all the receipts and expenditures have been recorded, but have not been audited yet. So it's still subject to change, but nothing that will be material. But as anticipated, the revenue is down. The actual revenue for 24 is down. Whether you're comparing that to the 3-year average, which is 23, 22, and 21, or comparing it to 23, total revenue is down just under 15%, 1.5 million versus 1.8 million for 23, and a 3-year average of $1.6 million. Expenses were up, and that's a continuing trend. Again, something that the Director of Public Works and the Superintendent of Solid Waste both have been reminding the committee that where the trends are going. The cost of disposal is growing, the cost of the items that we have to purchase to make it possible to dispose, as well as to recycle, whether it's containers, shipping containers, bags that people purchase, they throw, and of course, once the contract expires in more years, we do know that the cost that the town will have to pay for its disposal will increase. And it's either going to be increased because the local area that would accept the town's trash will have to charge a higher rate because their cost structure is higher. Or if there's a chance that there's a more competitive bid, but we have to ship it further, which will increase our shipping costs. So whichever it is, we know our costs will be increasing. And again, the average over the last 3 years has been 2.5 million in expenses, and last year was just under 2.7 billion in actual expenses. The gap between revenues and expenses was $1.18 million, which is higher than 3-year average, which was about 925,000 a year, and significantly more than the difference between revenues and expenses in 23. Some of the good highlights is recycling revenue was up, particularly the recycling income the town is receiving from metals is strong, as well as just generic recycling. When we say generic, it's mostly cardboard, but there's some other items, and that's also been remaining very favorable for 24. Comparable to 23, 24 total of 74,000, 23 was $70,000, but 22 and 21 and fiscal 20, the height of COVID, we were 20, 27, 20 and 10,000. So again, yet another reason why the rates need to be adjusted. The rate structure proposal before you, just as a reminder, the committee had already voted to recommend to the select board to increase the bag, the large bag fee for a package of 10 by $1.60, for 10, or in other words, 16 cents per bag. And to increase the small bag pack of 10 by 85 cents, or 8.5 cents per bag. The committee had voted back in September of 23, based upon our presentation and recommendation of the superintendent, to have a separate fee paid by commercial operations to drop off mattresses, from $20 to $40. And again, that's because of the volume and the cost of disposal for the town is, was basically the fee that we were charging. And the committee supported recommending a fee of $40. It did not get voted upon by the select board. It was an oversight, and we will present that to the board at the public hearing to adopt in September. The other was to bring the fee for disposal of television. That's again another administrative correction. The flat screen TV is at $20. The cost of disposing of a television, whether it's flat, the old fashioned television, is the same cost as the flat screen. And hence we would, we're looking to unify that rate at $20. The Trumbull screener is just acknowledging the fact that the program has been discontinued and we haven't generated income from the Trumbull screener. And in fact, if you notice on the history on the revenue to expenses, where I provided that breakdown, miscellaneous revenue, you see that there's been no Trumbull screener revenue for many, many years. So we're just getting it officially removed from this scale, from the schedule. What we are really back here for with the board is there's a proposal about modifying the snow dump. We're not seeking to eliminate the 4-hour shift fee that should the RTS be open for special after-hour purposes, that those rates would still be in effect. But to accommodate smaller snow dump requirements that would happen during regular business hours, that we would have a fee based upon cubic yard, and the recommendation is that have a $4 per cubic yard cost with a minimum dump of $15. So basically, we would be looking at someone bringing in 4 cubic yards or more to or less to be subject to the $15 fee. On the commercial yard waste, again, acknowledging how we're handling commercial yard waste. We don't do it by cubic yard. It's not easily done for yard waste, just the way it sets itself. It's based upon scale rate, so we could just remove those from the price structure. And the last item was I was being over eager, and I had inadvertently struck the loan barrels, but we do sell loan, and the rate is $2.58, and we're not looking for the committee to recommend eliminating that product. So effectively, we're seeking the committee support to recommend to the select board to implement the $4 per cubic yard for the snow dump, which would be charged for the snow dump when it's available. If the dump is full with snow, we can't accept it. But if there's room for small businesses to dump during regular business hours at the RTS, the fee would be $4 per cubic yard with a minimum fee of $15.
How do you measure cubic yards of snow?
Generally, you look at the truck, like if you've got a 6-wheel dump, like a heavy 6-wheel dump, you think that's probably about a 5-yard load. If it's a triaxle, we usually call that 25 yards, and it's sort of an industry standard. So nobody's really like
You don't go out there with a yard.
We're not going out there, no, but you know, it's, you know, when we do any kind of snow removal, you know, you kind of say, here's a trailer dump. Because, you know, large trailer dump would be like maybe 40 yards.
Because it's kind of a
Confusion.
dynamic thing, it's like, you know, the snow is melting,
Oh, yeah.
it's freezing, and
Well, so the dimensions of the trucks that you described, right? You check and see if they're like, what if it's half full? Would the guy come in and say, it's only half full?
If someone's coming in with a large 6, they're gonna get charged for 5 yards, and if they didn't fill it. You know, I mean, we're not, at $4 a yard, I think somebody who's removing it with that kind of equipment isn't gonna. $4 a yard's a pretty fair rate. You know, this gives the RTS in the town the opportunity to help some of the smaller property owners remove snow if there's been multiple snow events and they just need the parking, or if they need a place to store equipment, or even if they're just backed up so that you know, it could be the small lot across the street.
So likewise, if it comes in and it's heaped high above, it's still
If
5
it
yards.
were unsafe, we'd say something to them. If they were hauling snow and snow were falling out of it, it'd be incumbent on us to tell them that they can't haul like that, but yeah, it's just basically by the truck.
Based on these numbers, do you have any idea what, if these numbers were implemented, what the deficit would be next year versus if the changes weren't made?
Or, well, the snow dump, no sense, I mean, that's.
Right. No, but I mean, the bag,
But
the
back
sticker fee
is,
is probably the biggest one.
we're basically looking at an 8% increase in the fee. So in bag sale revenue was $262,000. So we would be looking at basically generating about another $25,000. So if this was in effect for this past fiscal year and we sold the exact same number of bags, the deficit would have been reduced by $25,000. It's not, it's a phased-in approach. What we anticipate is the bag fees will be going up on a more regular basis than they have been. That hadn't, in part because of COVID, that is basically, it was a freeze, that was one aspect. But the other aspect is that we know that these costs are going up, and we anticipate that there'll be more frequent increases in the rates. But the percentage increases won't be as high as what has happened in the past, where there might be 4, 5, 8 years between rate increases, and it's a double-digit increase.
Is there any particular deficit target that you shoot for in terms of? We know that the price rates are not gonna offset all the deficit, but you're at least trying to get to a certain point.
The select board does not have a specific policy on that, but there was an acknowledgement, and hence one of the reasons the enterprise fund was dissolved, that the idea that would be fully self-sufficient wasn't plausible. And hence why it was brought back into the general fund operations. But, so there's not a specific policy, but clearly, we don't want the deficit to be growing as the cost increase. So I would anticipate that we want a deficit not to be more than 50% of the cost. Or basically, the other way of saying it is that the actual consumer is paying at least 50% of the cost of disposal.
Dave, can you guys hear me? This is Wells.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Dave, I had a question for you, relating to the deficit. I think it was last year sometime at the end of the year, maybe, when we set a new rate schedule for some of the commercial vendors that are coming in, and that would come into play over the course of several years. So do we have numbers, estimated numbers based on this year's volume of what the increase in revenue would be for the next few years based on the increases that we set?
We haven't done an analysis, but as you know, the rate did go into effect and was in effect in 24, and our revenue declined. We went from. a
Right, but next
million-
year it should go up farther, right? Like the rates are going up each year. We set it as over the course of several years, it was supposed to go up, right?
The next, it was a two-step process on the rate increase, and that took effect on July 1st, where the rate went up to $180, and that was effective on July 1st.
For some reason, I recall, and maybe I'm not recalling correctly, that it would be over a few years. Is that not right? That it was only 2 steps?
It was a two-step approach that was taken. Of course, we would be looking at the scale rate next year when we look at rates for FY 26. That was really the conversation was we were going to do a two-phase, basically trying to get the rate going up in 24 and to have the rate already set for FY 25, which began on July 1st, which it did. It went up to $180, and for tier 2 users, $220. But we would be looking at the scale rate for FY 26. So next spring, in the March of 25, we would be looking at the scale rate, whether that needs to be increased as well, which I would anticipate if our forecast in terms of the cost of disposal are accurate, that the scale rate will have to go up. But it'll be an annual recommendation by the committee.
Thanks.
Well, and will you follow up or,
Oh, no, so I said thank you. Thank you.
oh, okay.
Okay. Any more questions or discussion points?
And along those same lines though, I think that what we had talked about doing 3 separate was the large bag, were the bags in general. I think that's the one that we had discussed in 3 stages.
Yes, which would be, again, also in March, we'll be looking at the bag rates.
Okay, but I think, Wells, I think that, just for clarification, I think the bag rate is what we had talked about doing phased over multiple years.
Thanks. Maybe I got confused.
That's specific to the question, and actually, there was Wells that asked about the frequency, and I said that we'd be doing it annually, but COVID really stopped the process.
So are we ready to vote? People feel supportive of these fee increases?
So, Mr. Chair, if you just like me to recap again, so it's clear to the committee, so the recommendation that would be going to the select board would be to increase the fee for the large bag by $1.60 for a package of 10, increasing the fees for the small bag for a package of 10 by 85 cents. To implement the a commercial drop-off fee for mattresses of $40 per package. If the television disposal fee will go up by $5. That we would implement a new fee to accommodate small haulers, small dump on a cubic yard of $4. We would have a minimum fee of $15. And that we would be removing from the fee schedule brush and leaves on a volume basis and eliminating from the fee schedule travel screener rental.
Thank you for the summary.
I make a motion that we recommend to the board of selectmen to accept the changes as proposed.
Second. I have to do a roll, okay, so, roll call. David,
Yes,
Bill,
Yes.
Wells,
Yes.
Jeff,
Yes.
And the chair votes yes.
And Mr. Chair, the public hearing is scheduled for September tenth, September 10th. And the board, which would not vote the rates on September tenth, they always allow more time for public comment, would be voting on September 24th with the recommendation that the fees take effect on October 1st. I would post the committee for a meeting on September 10th at 5:45. Public hearing is scheduled for 6 p.m. just in case there is anything that needs to be taken and ensure that there's no issue if you have a quorum present at the select board meeting.
Is that just anticipation that comes up that day, or will you be able to notify people ahead of time whether or not we need to,
I will
hold,
confirm,
hold,
yeah.
hold that meeting? So if everything goes okay, then their attendance would be optional?
Yes, yes. It's just to ensure that if we have a quorum present, that it's posted.
Okay. All right, okay, I thought it was more if there was something that came up that we would have, we could meet and make it last minute,
Correct. There are two parts. One, the posting to ensure that we don't run afoul of the public open meeting law,
if we all show up.
if you all show up. And if there happens to be something that we do need you to show up, I would be able to let you all know. Prior to.
Great.
And there is nothing else on the schedule for this year for meeting. I would propose that the next meeting be Tuesday, October 29th. That's convenient for you all.
That's okay with me.
It's a little bit spooky,
Yes, it is.
pun intended.
What was the date?
October
The
29th.
Oh, October 29th. Actually, I will be out of town.
Okay, so we can look to November then.
Okay,
November 5th, is it Tuesday?
That is election day.
Oh,
Should be a doozy.
So.
how dare I forget
well,
that?
do we need? Yeah, we don't want to do it on the third, Tuesday. Right,
Yeah,
No, that's Thanksgiving, isn't it? The
No,
week
no,
of the
the
19th?
No, the Thanksgiving's the 28th,
That'd be
and
great.
the third
Yeah,
Tuesday would be the
Oh, the week
19th,
after, yeah.
which doesn't conflict with the select board.
great, November 19th.
Nothing there.
So now I need a motion to adjourn.
Sorry, I had one more quick question for Dave. Related to the question before that we were talking about revenue. I just pulled up the amount on of it looks like the 2023 scale revenue was $1 million, just over $1 million. Does that sound about right?
There was 1,070,000.
Right. And so just trying to put some numbers real quick. The increase, the most recent increase that took place for the scale rates was in July of this year, right?
The second increase took effect in July.
Yeah, which was either 12% for the tier 1 or actually over 20% for the tier 2. So,
Yes.
you know, if we actually apply that 12 or 20%, you're talking about 100 grand or even more. So I just wanted to share that that could have a pretty material impact on the revenues for next year. So that I just wanted to mention that real quick, because compared to the 25,000 that we were talking about in terms of the deficit, and of course costs may go up much more than that, but I did just want to mention that those numbers seem fairly significant. So we should hopefully see between 100,000 and 200,000 increase in revenues there.
That would be positive if the volume stays the same.
Good. Sorry, that just was a quick thing. I'm good for the motion to adjourn. So motion to adjourn, I can do.
So, okay. Oh, I can't do a
It has to be roll call.
roll call. David?
Yes,
Yes,
Yes.
Yes,
Wells? And, the chair votes yes, we're adjourned. Thank you,
Thank you.
thanks, everybody.
Thanks.
and I'll see you September 10th.